This week, I have selected a question from Reggie who asks, why would God ever create us? What do we bring to the table? Why does God value us or our faith? And the question today ties in with our Christmas message or Advent message as well. And we will also talk about why God came to earth, as a baby. So hello, Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate Christmas. And happy regular day to those of you who don't celebrate Christmas or are viewing any other day, any other of the 365 days of the year besides Christmas. I'm Amy with Ask a Christian, and I'm excited to welcome some new subscribers today. And Brithu, Kelly and Sana, Mario, Alexandre, Rodriguez, I don't know how to say this one, but D.S. Wickern, maybe? Paul Clark, Waramu Grace, and Bone Apple Teeth. Thank you so much for joining me and being part of this community. All right. I also want to answer your question. No, I do not usually dress like this. This is my hot Christmas mess vest. Got it a couple of years ago at the Goodwill, supporting some of our local charities and just feeding into my desire for strange denim at this time of year. So let me just show it off a little bit for you. If you've got a strange Christmas sweater or vest or whatever, I'd love to see it. Now, if you're the kind of person who likes authentic discussion surrounding the Christian worldview, you are in luck because you're going to like it here. Please subscribe at youtube.com/askachristian or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/askachristianfriend. You're probably already there now watching us. Also, if you've got a discussion point, a question you'd like to ask and you want to do it more privately, you can always email me at askachristianfriend@gmail.com. All right, all the preliminaries are out of the way. Let's get back to Reggie. By the way, here is the too long didn't watch version. Reggie, I will answer your question with a question. Why would a parent create a child? What does that child bring to the table? And what, if anything, does the parent get out of that relationship? The answer is the same in every situation, and I believe in this question as well when it comes to God. The answer is love, my friend Reggie. And love creates, love self-perpetuates, and love has value in its own existence. This message, my friend, ties in deeply to something that has been stirring in my heart for some time. So if you, dear friend, if you watcher, are intrigued by the possibility of a God of love, if you want to hear about a God who, now wait, this is going to sound blasphemous, did not come to die for you, just wait. We'll get into that. And if you want to know what all of this has to do with Jesus coming to earth, please stand by. If you are not interested in this, if you're a troll, now is the time to exit the building. All right, scram. So here's what we're going to explore today. Why do you believe that Jesus came to earth? Why, out of all the limitless options that God had to come to earth, did he choose the very ordinary mechanism of a human baby? Thank you so much. Yes, it's good to see you too. I just want to welcome you and thank you for hanging out with me today on Christmas Eve. I am here at the Register Ranch in Arkansas, and it is nice to have you here. All right. So God chose to come as a baby. I am interested in this because I've actually seen a baby or two right after they were born, particularly my own brother, AJ. When they lifted him up and showed him to me, I yelled, he's cute, he's cute. But just to be honest with you, looking back, he was not cute. He was covered with some gunk. He was different colors than you think skin should be. But it was amazing. Something that I would call an ordinary miracle. But again, out of all the ways that God could have come to earth, all the ways that he could have chosen to save us, he chose to come as a human and experience the whole shebang from birth to death as a human. So this is what has gotten me thinking lately. Some people say that the reason Jesus came to earth was mostly to fulfill a theological necessity. The argument goes something like this. It's an argument that says that God becoming man was necessary for salvation. So Jesus came as a human because if he had been God only, his sacrifice wouldn't have meant much. It would have been cheap and unconvincing. But if he had come as a man only, his sacrifice wouldn't have actually gotten the job done. It would have been meaningful, but he would have been a martyr like thousands of other martyrs for a good cause. He would have no actual power to save humanity. So to succeed as a perfect representative of mankind, he had to become mankind so his sacrifice could be applied to all of humanity. Does that make sense? I hope it does. If not, we can chat about it later. Here's the thing, though. This doesn't work for me. Maybe it's because I dwell too long on this sort of thing. I don't know. But although this makes sense, although this works theologically, I get it, it doesn't make the most amount of sense because, yes, if Jesus wanted to be counted as living and dying in my place, it makes sense he would have had to come and live as a human. But it still seems like he could have done this in like a 24-hour period, maybe a couple of weeks. Basically, in my mind, all Jesus would have had to done to fulfill the living as perfect part is come for a limited amount of time until he had overcome various categories of temptation. And if he couldn't overcome these various categories of temptation, then he could say, look, I came and I lived, for some amount of time and I overcame sin, and now my sacrifice will pay for Amy's life. So what blows my mind is that he would have come for any longer time than necessary. So it seems like Jesus could have gotten this done in 24 to 48 hours. That amount of time would provide ample amount for sinning, especially since the sin problem doesn't seem to be specific activities, but a selfish way of the heart, a way of the ego which pervades human thinking. So Jesus could have stuck around only until he was tempted in major categories. Bam, died for us, gotten out of there, the game's over, we're saved, and he gets to get back to heaven. But that's not how the story goes. Jesus, according to our own book, our own story, spent 33 years on this project. So just living perfectly and dying as our substitute doesn't seem to be the reason he came. Again, I know that sounds blasphemous. Just stay with me. Now, what I believe this all comes down to is one tiny 4-letter word. It's not a bad one. The word is with. The Bible calls Jesus Emmanuel, God with us. The Bible predicted that he would come and there would be something special about him and the way he interacted with humanity, that we would feel that God was with us. So I started reading the Bible with a focus on the intent and the heart of God. And do you know what I found? That doing things for us was not why Jesus showed up on the earth. Unlike the common view that Jesus' birth as a human was just a necessary step on his way to saving us, instead, I believe in a bigger concept that encompasses and does not negate the first, that Jesus, what he did for us was just a tiny, tiny sliver of his ultimate goal to be with us. That he had to do the for. It was a mechanism by which he would get to spend eternity with us. And to me, this is just more convincing, more motivating, more based on relationship. It feels like love. It feels like understanding. To me, Knowing that Jesus wants to be with us is like your significant other coming home with you for the holidays. Very similar to a Hallmark movie, perhaps, except way better. But this significant other wants to know about you in your hometown, your favorite teachers, what awards you won in school, what your parents are like, anything that they can do to get to know you, because they just want to be with you. So instead of the birth of Jesus being just a one-time rescue mission, though of course it is that, it seems to be more of an extension of God's original intent to be with us. It seems to be part of his very nature, who he is as a God of relationship. Now, this is really interesting to me because, as you know, if you read through comments on this channel's video or hang out with me much, I'm always trying to answer questions about God and his character and about Christianity and why Christianity is different. And I don't want to talk with any swagger like, Christianity is superior. Those words are offensive to people. But I do believe that certain ideas are superior to others. And this is one of those that seems to get at the heart of humanity. And when I study the narrative of the Christian Bible, what I've come to find is that more and more, it seems like God is talking to me. He's revealing that all he wants is to be with his creation. Now, if you are a reader of the Bible, you can think of at least a few moments, a few movements where the Bible records the heart of God, and that his biggest goal is to dwell with Israel, through Israel, and then because of Israel, fill the whole world with his blessings. Genesis 12:3 talks about God being a blessing to all and blessing all the families of the earth. So there's one place. Let's just go through a couple things. I would love to see your comments. What else you're thinking about when God wanted to be with his people, examples of when God wanted to be with his people. But first thing that came to mind for me, Genesis, God is recording walking and talking with his very first creations, Adam and Eve, in the cool of the evening. And then if you fast forward to the population of the earth, God calls out Israel, and they've been in captivity in Egypt. And God says, I'm going to lead you out of captivity, and I'm going to be with you the entire way. He appears as a cloud by day, providing shelter, and a pillar of fire by night. And he says, I am with you. Also in Exodus, there is one that, this was the first one I thought of actually, where God is trying to find a way to be with his people. He says, I want you to build me a sanctuary that I may dwell among you. His goal, even though sin has separated him from being able to be face to face with his creation, he is finding a way that we would want to separate sin from ourselves and be with him as closely as possible. That's what the sanctuary message is for. And Jesus' very last words in Matthew's gospel are, behold, I am with you always. Matthew 28:20. In other words, there is never a time when I am not with. In the book of Revelation, when John is talking about his vision of God's everlasting intentions with his people, the voice from heaven says this, see, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them as their God. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. That's Revelation 21:3. All right, so that's just kind of an overview. Beginning to end, the narrative of Scripture is God wanting to be with his people. And I left out a big chunk on purpose because I want to spend just a few minutes on Jesus himself, because this blew my mind. I've been reading this book called A Nazareth Manifesto. Give you some quotes from it, but it says that the largest part of his time, of Jesus' time on earth, was just being with people. The ministerial period of calling, training, and sending disciples, the working with part, and the atoning for part, the death and resurrection, only make up about 10% of Jesus' life on earth. What was the 90%? What was the rest of it? Well, it's not just junk. What is the theological significance of that hidden 90%, the 30 some odd years that Jesus spent in Nazareth? Here's a quote from Samuel Wells, the author of the book I was telling you about, A Nazareth Manifesto. It says, "Those Nazareth years demonstrate in their obscurity as much as in their sheer duration, in their simplicity as much as their large majority, God's fundamental purpose to be with us, not primarily to rescue us or even empower us, but to simply be with us, to share our existence, to enjoy our hopes and fears, our delights and griefs, our triumphs and disasters." He basically says that all the other actions of God, working for us, working out our salvation, doing things for us, are all ways that he is preparing us for the fundamental end goal, which is to be with us. That's why he's trying to redeem us. That's why he's trying to keep us from eternal damnation. Here's the rest of that quote. Samuel Wells says, "God being with us, that is what was ever in God's heart and whatever shall be." So my friends, what does this have to do with us? Well, if you're a Christian, God's desire to be with us has got to be a big part of our message. It's so attractive. If this is who God is, what he longs for, and his goal is in coming to earth is to be with us, then it's just a beautiful differentiator. That sets Christianity apart from any other faith, God and his desire to be with his people. So did God come to the earth to save us? Of course he did. Does God desire our obedience? Of course he does. Does he desire our works? Does he want us to serve others? Of course he does. Does he want to ultimately destroy sin and have us get it out of ourselves and out of our world? Of course he does. But ultimately, the goal of all of this stuff is just so that we can be together face to face. That's how it was in the garden. That's how it will be at the end of our existence here on earth. The whole desire of God is to be with his people. Now, as his representatives, we've got to do a better job at with. If you consider yourself a Christian, you will, hopefully this message will resonate with you and you will feel that tug on your heart, because the word for has its strengths. It seems noble. It is what we would think epitomizes being an admirable person or a good Christian. But to cook for, to shop for, to prepare for, to wrap presents for, all these fors, although they are generous, kind, and in some cases sacrificial and noble, they do not get to the heart of the problem here on earth. I'm wrapping up if you're getting tired of hearing me jabber on. Again, here's Samuel Wells from A Nazareth Manifesto. He says, "For is a fine word, but it doesn't dismantle resentment. It doesn't overcome misunderstanding. It doesn't deal with alienation. It doesn't overcome isolation." I want to challenge you, not just today because it's Christmas Eve and Christmas is tomorrow, but as you look at the trajectory of your life through this year and the coming ones, that you would purpose in your heart to be with people in order to demonstrate to them God's purpose in coming to this earth. Now, I will warn you, with is difficult. It's scary. It often asks more than we are prepared to give, because if you're with people, they will take your time. You will give attention to things that are less than fascinating to you. Choose with anyway. I have a friend, I won't call her out. Her name sounds very similar to mine, but she once told me, "You know what? I don't really need any more friends. I've given all the time I have for doing this, for doing that." And I thought to myself, you know what? She's right. If we're busy doing the fours, it is so hard to just settle in and be with somebody. I believe that's what God asks for us. But again, with is difficult. When you're with people, you'll often find that you are much weaker than you thought you were, and you cannot affect outcomes in every situation. Be with people anyway. When you're with people, you are likely to be exposed as selfish, wounded, and possibly even needy yourself. Be with anyway. Christian church groups, I wish we were the best at the with movement. We have a shared mission and we have the greatest example of all times. But of course, we fall short. And I think we really need to take a look at why. My friend Pastor Marcos a couple weeks ago posted something on Facebook that really got my attention. He said for him, basically, it's one or the other, being involved with the production, the show of church, or actually being with people. And of course, there are times in your life where it's not one or the other. You can do church and you can be with people. He's not saying that that's never the case, but he says for himself, increasingly, he finds that one sucks the energy out of the desire and drive for the other. And if he had to choose one, if he had to pick programming or people, he's going to pick people. By taking an appraisal of all of our relationships and asking ourselves, does my doing arise out of my fundamental commitment to be with, or is my doing for driven by my profound desire to avoid the discomfort, the challenge, the patience, and the loss of control in being with? How are you at being with? I could use some work. All right, in closing, as part of this Advent message, some 2,000 years ago, God decided to continue his pursuit of love, to continue his pursuit of his people by coming as an ordinary baby to a teen mom camping out in a place where animals were sheltered. While he did so much for us, there was no relationship. Reconciliation is the gospel. Being with is not a means to an end. It is an end in itself. God with us is his ultimate goal. And as we have understood, let us live it and tell it to others. Well, Reggie, I know that you can see I went really, really in depth into your question. And I know that you understand what I'm saying here. That love, that relationship, that's all God gets out of it. But that's ultimately what he wants out of it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Merry Christmas Eve. And I'm wishing you joy and peace for your journey wherever it leads you. That's all for now. Bye and thank you.